Welcome to today's episode of the Dog Training Dogma with your host, Jonathan Katz. As always, with me in the studio is Hood Rat Heather. Welcome, Heather.
Hello.
Thank you for being here with me.
My pleasure.
It's been a little bit since we've been able to get into the studio. After Worlds, I was in Vietnam and India judging trials. And then I came back, we were working on projects and then getting ready for the new class. We've now, we're starting week 5. So we just finished a month of our immersion program. It's going really well. We have 6 full-time students. And then we have students that come in just for the week. I really love that I specifically set up the program to make the school a place for continuing education. Allow trainers to be able to come here. And it's really hard to take, 3 months, 6 months, or 9 months of your life. If you're trying to immerse yourself into the career of dog training, it's going to be a fast track. You're going to learn in 9 months what might take you, multiple years to be able to learn. But, not everyone has that ability. And being able to take a week and go and continue your education was really important to me. So I love when we have week-long students come in. They might be here for a week, 2 weeks. I'll see them again at a trial, and I'll see them go out and, do well. And it makes me happy to see students do well, even if I only spent a week with them, right?
Right.
So, school's going great, but just busy and, haven't been able to get in here. We had the last episode was our international episode. That was really exciting. Getting to sit down with Sean and, kind of record on location of our travels abroad. I'm really thankful PSA for all that I gave back to the sport of judging for, this is my 11th season. But it gave me the ability to travel, and it gave me the ability to, meet people. And I love culture, and I love dog sports, and I love dog sport culture. So I like spending time with people that do the same thing that I do in other parts of the world, other parts of the country. It's, we all have something in common. If we didn't, compete in dog sports, there would be no chance, that we would ever encounter each other in life. But that's what's the coolest part about life is, the journey of life and where things take you and who you get to, my trips to India, I've made lifelong friends, and people that, I truly cherish and I keep in touch with on a regular basis. So I really appreciate that. I really enjoy it. It's hard to get away with the school. Last year I judged 11 trials. That was a lot of trials. But the sport's really hurting for judges. And so that's, again, my way of giving back. But this year I'm doing 7, and it's still a lot. So, it's still really important to me to judge, but it's also important for me to be here and focus on the students. And so it's a reason why I'm really not giving very many seminars. I'm going to do, I do a handful, maybe a year away from the school, but my main focus are the students. I want to be as present as I possibly can for them, and for them to come here and be able to spend time and learn and immerse themselves. So this is, we're starting a video series. This is going to be a series that I'm calling an ode to my mentor. I am going to go through and devote an episode to each one of the people that really had the most impact on my career, that had the strongest impact on the way that I communicate with dogs, that has made me so successful. I think it's the only thing that's right. I think, I tell the stories and the students hear about, the stories and things like that, but I think it's really important, with what the podcast is. I think it's really important for people to hear, other people's experience, right? This is my experience. These are the people that helped me. And, if you've ever learned something from me, there's a chance that something that you learned came from one of these people, right? And I think the most important thing when it comes to mentor-mentee culture is I think you should always give the trainer the credit if you learned something from them, right? So if you're teaching something, you're passing the knowledge down, which I think is super important, right? We have to patch the knowledge down. If we gatekeep, then we'll never make the next generation as as good as they possibly can, as quickly as they possibly can, because we can teach them all of our mistakes, right? That's one very important component of having a mentor, is learning from mistakes that they've made. That we're smart enough, we're humans, we can have conversations. We don't need to repeat the same habits, right? We don't need to repeat a mistake that someone that we value their opinion and their experiences, and this is something that they experienced, right? So I think that's a big component. It's a big component of learning what did they do that made them successful, right? That's a huge component. But I think also we don't learn from success, we learn from failure, right? It was all the failures with Uzi to then finally figure out what was the secret sauce that could get me through what I needed to get through, right? It was all of the mistakes that I had made that had, like large outcomes by way of, I drove 10 hours for my dog to not, want to sit next to me at the start cone in a level 3 obedience routine, and then the next day, got through obedience. And it's what did I do from Saturday that, what did I then do on Sunday that changed his mind, right? In that moment, that learning experience was I tired him out. I chucketed him for 45 minutes. And I made him so tired that when he came to the start cone, he was like, and the judge looked at me and he's like, what did you do to him? And I'm like, I chucketed him. And I literally chucketed him for 45 minutes. Once I tired him out, it took away half of his energy to want to fight me and not want to listen. So he's like, I guess I'm kind of tired. I'll listen now. So that was a huge light bulb moment. But it took driving 10 hours each way to Virginia to step on the field day one to not have my dog at the start cone, right? It took that learning at large, how much did I drive, wear and tear on my vehicle, gas money, hotel. I got a ticket on the way down there. I had a radar detector, and Virginia radar detectors are illegal, and I didn't know that. And I was speeding a little bit, and the guy picked up my radar detector, and so I got a ticket. And then my dog wouldn't sit at the start cone. So day 2, got through obedience. This was my learning lesson. But it took these big, so it takes big, it's like positive punishment experiences. The positive punishment, the application of a painful stimulus to decrease the likelihood of a behavior. If you're using positive punishment, it should be a singular learning experience. If we correct the dog for something that they did wrong, we're first understanding that they know what is right from wrong. And now we tell them that they're wrong. They shouldn't then do it again. As a little kid, the stove is hot. I go to touch the stove. Mom goes, hey, don't touch that. It's hot, right? She's trying to mentor me. She's trying to teach me. I don't listen. I'm stubborn. I touch the stove. The stove burns me. Okay, I just learned right there, stove is hot, stove will burn me, right? This is a singular learning experience. I don't now need to touch the stove again to know that it's hot, right? So, these big experiences, but you should learn from them, right? You should learn from your mentor's mistakes. You shouldn't want to repeat your mentor's mistakes. Having a student that so badly wanted to go through my experience that he chose to continue and make the mistakes that I made in the beginning, that I told him, hey, I made these mistakes, don't do that. But he wanted to go on that journey. I feel like I can save you from all of this stress and failure by just teaching you and explaining to you like, hey, if you do this, this will be your outcome. And that's not the outcome you're looking for, right? When we first start the journey, when we're raising a dog, especially when we're brand new to this, like it's like watching a movie with cliffhangers. And it's a long movie. It's a 4-hour movie, right? Like you're going to be there for a while. You need snacks, right? That like there's going to be a few potty breaks in there, right? With the, like this is going to be long and you don't know what the end is. And there's all these cliffhangers, right? And there's sad parts and there's really happy parts. And at the end, everyone, the guy gets the girl gets the girl, the guy gets the guy, like everyone's happy. Everyone, we ultimately are going to have a good outcome, but we don't know what the end of the movie's like. And it's stressful. For people that have anxiety, I give them anxiety. I don't want to make a mistake. I don't want to do anything wrong. I'd rather people have to a little bit extent of like apprehension of like, well, I'm just going to not do this with my dog because I'm worried of the mistake that I'm going to make, versus people are like, fuck it, let's try it. And then there's a potential of making a mistake and having to go back and fix it. It's going to depend on the person. It's going to depend on the dog's temperament. It's going to depend on the relationship. Some dogs and handler have such a strong relationship that they can overcome higher levels of stress. And some dogs are more forgiving. Some dogs are less forgiving. Let's go to why do most working dog handlers, male or female, why do most of them choose male working dogs? What do we not deal with male working dogs? Heat cycles. I have to deal with like the distraction of females in heat, but females are more sensitive. Females are more maternal. Females are not going to forgive you for your huge mistakes. They're going to show you that they don't like what you did to them. They take more finesse. They take more communication than, again, this is all just my opinion, but the meme going around, researchers say that female dogs will judge you more than male dogs. Fuck yeah, they will. They're going to judge you from your mistakes, right? Now, can we go like, oh, okay, daddy was mean, let's go out for ice cream? Does the ice cream alleviate the stress? Depending on how much stress was put on the dog, but to an extent, right? So we always have rewards there to, alleviate stress. But I know that all the mistakes I made with Cougar's my first working dog, my first female working dog. And I made a ton of mistakes with her that like all of the male dogs that I had handled previously had no, they were the next day I'd make a mistake on at night. The next day we woke up, they forgot about it. Right. And we could just move on from it, So giving my mentors the credit that they deserve by telling the stories, right? This is my channel. It's the stories that I want to tell. And I think mentor culture is really important to me. It doesn't matter who your mentor is. It's the fact that people are mentoring and people are still understanding the value of having a mentor-mentee relationship and finding the right person for you, right? Because everyone's going to communicate with people differently. I try to, as a mentor, communicate with the person the way that they need to be communicated with, right? A more sensitive handler, a more stubborn handler, a higher driven handler. Every different personality of trainer is going to get, to an extent, a different variation of Jonathan because they all need different communication, such as the same as the dog, right? So I have to give credit. Like, I've definitely figured out a lot of shit by myself. I'm very lucky that all of my mentors taught me all of this amazing communication, but none of them did PSA. My success having 3 PSA 3s is from me figuring out the puzzle through my experience and the experience of my mentors. They helped me lay a foundation. They taught me how they got me through steps, And so today, episode 1, I am devoting to my mentor, Waleed Maalouf. This man is the most important person to me in my career of shaping how I think about dog training today. Thank you, Waleed. Thank you for everything that you taught me. Thank you for the conversations that you had with me when I was going through stress. You know, I've had hundreds and hundreds of conversations with students of they're going through something. You just need someone to talk to. You need someone to figure out the answer, right? You might have the answer, but, you know, sometimes just talking it out with someone that you respect will help solve the problem. You know, Waleed's the one that, you know, figured out how to get Uzi through a level 3 obedience routine. Now, he's also Uzi's breeder, right? So one of the huge reasons, besides everything that he physically taught me, is him selling me that dog, and that dog being one of my greatest mentors. So I'm going to do an ode to Uzi, right? Because that dog taught me how to be quick. That dog taught me how to be fair. That dog taught you, like, if you made a mistake, he would tell you that you're wrong. You know, he was a moody dog. And depending on what mood he was in, and depending on what mood I was in for that matter, I was not in control of my emotions. And so, you know, sometimes you'd go to correct him and he would be sensitive. Sometimes you go to correct him and he would come up on you, right? You know, sometimes handler sensitive, sometimes handler aggressive. And then other times just like handler neutral. Like I vividly remember correcting him before and him looking at me like, all right, bro, you done? Right? Just a very tough dog. And if Waleed didn't give me that dog, I would not be the trainer that I am today. Now, having to be able to rise to the occasion, right? You're getting handed like a, you know, it's just a ball of, it's like a Tasmanian devil with razor blades, right? And you're like, what the fuck do I do with this? You know, I said that I was ready, but you know, like you have to rise to the occasion, right? When I have students and they, you know, they decided to get a Malinois as their first dog, like, fuck yeah, I agree with you. I want a Malinois too if I was you, but you can't like drive really slow in the fast lane. That's not going to work. You're driving a Ferrari, you're going 20 miles an hour. The speed limit is 75. You got to go faster, right? So you have to rise to the occasion. You know, I had to rise to the occasion. Like I sucked until I didn't suck anymore, right? What's the saying? Get good? Like, fuck. I can't tell you how many times I'm like, I can't wait till I can get good, because it takes experience. It takes reps. It takes making mistakes and then learning from them, right? And like the way that Waleed taught me how to feel about how dogs learn and understand, right? I had been to a couple of Waleed's seminars, right? Besides all the training that we had done privately, I had been to a couple of his seminars, and I was like, why, you know, after a couple, I was like, oh, why don't you do more seminars? He's like, I do them when my friends ask me. You know, it's kind of annoying to set them up. There's a lot of logistics involved. You know, there's a lot of back and forth, and I just didn't have time for it, right? He's successful on his own. He doesn't need it. I said, but the people, like, you got to get in front of the people. You're such an amazing instructor. The people deserve to hear you, and the people deserve to learn from you, and you should spread that knowledge. He's like, well, I don't want to set it up. And I said, well, what if I set the seminars up because I want the people to hear you talk, because I also want to just hear you talk? What if I set it up? You just have to show up. You just have to show up, teach, take a check, and go home. He goes, okay. If you'll do that, then I'll do that. I wasn't making any money. I didn't care about a dollar about this. I was being a promoter. Part of it was me being selfish because I wanted Waleed to give more seminars. And then the other part was me learning how to work the logistics of setting up seminars, right? All the moving parts and everything, you know, like everyone thinks like, oh, I just pay my fee and I just show up and there's just an instructor there. There's a lot more that goes into it than that, right? And figuring that out helped me because it wasn't my seminar. I was setting it up for Waleed, right? We did one at Steve Roberts. Shout out to Steve at his facility that he has since sold, Canine Performance, which ironically was previously owned by a mutual mentor of Steve and I, John Johnston, which is also going to be one of my episodes. But setting up that seminar for Waleed and then setting up, like seminars after that, it really helped me to learn how to, command a crowd, how to it is dog training, but it's also should be entertaining, right? If anyone's ever been, he doesn't do seminars anymore. He only has school. But if you've ever been to in the past, a Bart seminar, or you spend any time with him, you'll hear every so often, fucking shit, right? And you'll hear like, he's funny, he's entertaining. It's it makes the information easier to retain and enjoy because he's also funny, right? And he's entertaining. And I'll never forget, I was going around, it was a 3-day seminar at Steve's, and Saturday towards the end of the day, I'm kind of like walking around the room and like sitting down with people, and now I'm doing like my research. I'm doing my market research, and I'm asking people like, hey, did you enjoy this? Would you like to do this again? Is this something that you might want to host? And I'm just working the crowd, right? He's just still teaching. And I sit down next to 2 women. They both do French ring. And I said, so what do you think about this? And one of the women turned to me and goes, Sonny, I don't know whether to make Waleed my dog trainer or my boy toy. And I was like, oh, okay. That's the day that I understood that sex sells, right? And he is a very handsome man, and he definitely cares about his appearance, and I really respect that out of him. I don't necessarily care as much, but very pretty man. And, I was like, oh, okay. Like, not only is his training amazing, not only is he entertaining, but he's also handsome. So like, oh, okay, it's a triple threat, right? That made sense to me. It took me going to and setting up multiple seminars of his before I could actually explain to you the 4 quadrants of dog training. I want to say it was 3 or 4 seminars. I went to dog training school. I had been training dogs for years. I understood how to apply it, but I could not explain it to you. And the fact that he explained it in a way that made sense. If we understand the science behind the way that we communicate, it makes it easier to communicate. When dog trainers say, oh, don't worry about the 4 quadrants, just lure the dog. Like, you don't know what you're doing. You're creating people, they're sheeple. You're creating people that they don't know why they're doing what they're doing, and then there's ultimately no outcome. There's nothing that the dog ever does other than just, right? Like, compete with that. Take this and turn it into this, no matter what you're competing in. I recommend that all dog trainers should find something that they enjoy and they should compete in. It could be barn hunt. It could be dock diving. It could be dog sports, like protection sports, whatever it is, competitive obedience. Find something to compete in and demonstrate your training. Demonstrate that you can do what you're teaching people how to do. I think it's important. That's my cross that I'll die on, right? I believe that it's important to have done to be able to teach. There's too many people out there that are teaching but have not done, right? And Waleed did. When I was learning how to decoy from John, he took me on the weekend to a French ring trial. It was at Bob Salamini's, and I got to watch Waleed compete in Ring 2 with his dog Jenna. And that was like such a pivotal moment for me of like watching someone that I had admired and watching someone that, I aspired to be like actually be on the field and watch him like just be cool as a fucking cucumber, right? I'm sure there was stress inside, but there was no external stress. It's like I woke up like this, and to go out there, and I don't even remember what the performance was. I just remember how much I enjoyed actually watching him like do what he had explained to me of why we do things, right? That was such a cool experience for me of getting to see someone that I admire actually like put his balls on the field, right? So to speak. I was very lucky. I got to meet Waleed through I was doing an apprenticeship. The people weren't the nicest to me. It was a very much like they turned to me at a year. It was supposed to be a year apprenticeship. They turned to me at a year and they go, "Jonathan, we don't understand. We're trying to break you down so we can build you back up again, and it's not working." And I turned to them and I chuckled and I go, I don't understand. I don't need breaking down. I just need teaching. I'm like, I know how to train a dog. I'm obviously good at training dogs because they had been having me train dogs, but as an apprentice and not really getting paid to do it or getting paid a very small amount. They were always mean to me. They taught me like the basics of e-collar communication. It was Waleed that taught me what an e-collar could actually do with a dog. I figured out my communication, my modification of how I like to do it now, but I'm so thankful of how he taught me how to use such a phenomenal tool to actually like really help progress my training, to help progress communication. People that believe that e-collars are cruel, I will tell you that like the fact that I can communicate with the dog in half the amount of time and I can teach the dog in half the amount of time, like it's all about how you apply it. Yes, you can take this tool and it is one of the worst tools ever created for dog training because it could be abused, but that's like anything. Spoons make people fat? No. Ice cream makes people fat and people pick up the spoons and eat ice cream. I really like ice cream, okay? That's my problem. But like, you can't blame the tool. You have to blame the user. And as a user, it's like playing the fiddle with one hand and he's got 4 buttons and right? It was something that I really aspired to want to learn how to do. And I'm very thankful that he took me under his wing, sort of say, and he's like, I see you in this shitty apprenticeship. He was good friends with the owners of the company at the time. And, I see you in this shitty apprenticeship. I see that you have skill. Like that's one of the main reasons why I always thank him is he saw that like this wasn't a joke to me, that I was serious about this. Like he saw that I had a good hand and I knew how to communicate. I'm just fucking new. And unless someone shows me how to get better, like I don't know any better, right? From what they had originally showed me how to use e-collars, like sure, within a couple of months, I understood the idea of how to teach dogs, how to, how to use negative reinforcement without a leash and a collar, that you can create behaviors quicker because you're not removing any of that leash pressure, right? But beyond that, they really couldn't teach me anything more. I don't think they knew anything more. Waleed was the one that took me under his wing and taught me more, taught me how the collar means, it means no direction. It means to me, it means away from me, it means left, right, up and down. I've seen some amazing e-collar trainers, but this man is the one that like I spent the most amount of time with understanding how to use the collar and how the collar affects the dog's behavior, right? E-collar as gas pedal, not brake. How to teach the dog actually to go faster, right? I was at training one day and I was watching him train a dog. And again, like we're using the e-collar so low that the average dog trainer does not even notice that the dog actually is feeling the collar, right? Like we're working on such micro levels. The dog feels it before the average person believes that the dog is feeling it, right? We look for micro expressions on the dog's face, like literally just eyes. What was that? Did you hear that? Right? If we're really going to be so annoying, I'm going to be so annoying. I'm going to be so annoying. If I'm really going to be that annoying, I don't need to be loud to be annoying, right? If I'm teaching you how to turn something off, I just need the appropriate level. So the dog doesn't want to go onto place. The dog doesn't want to stay on place. And he puts the dog on place, and he starts pulling the dog and tapping the dog. And he pulling the dog and tapping the dog. And as the dog goes, he then helps the dog back onto place. I'm like, it doesn't make any sense. The dog's on the place. Why are you tapping the dog? The dog had no problem going onto place. It was staying on place. And he did it. And over again. He was then, again, opposition reflex, right? When I pull a dog, dog pulls away from me, right? So then he's like pulling on the dog's flat collar a little bit, like, hey, come with me. And the dog's like, nope. And then he starts paying the dog. And I was like, oh, okay. It doesn't, I get what you're doing, but it doesn't really make sense. It was like 6 months later, I had trained an American Bulldog. The dog was very well trained when they went home, but we did one go home and no follow-ups. People never called. Nothing I can do. The people called like 6 months later and they're like, hey, those follow-ups, can we do that? I go out to the person's house and the dog's okay. They've had the e-collar in a box, right? Like in the junk drawer in the kitchen. And so we put the collar on the dog. Within a few minutes, I have the dog like remembering what the training was. That's one of the beautiful things about an e-collar is it's a bridge to understanding. It's a bridge to, what the dog previously had learned and how I can remind them with that collar. And again, we're talking about it's so low that the dog's not even acting like they're responding, right? It's all about how we apply that negative reinforcement, that annoying stimulus, not a painful stimulus, annoying stimulus. And the dog's starting to do everything. The only thing I can't get the dog to do is to just go on to place. Dog won't even go on place. And I'm like, I'm trying my hardest. I'm like trying to guide the dog I don't want to physically pull the dog on. I'm going to guide the dog, but I don't want to physically pull the dog on. And the dog's just fighting me. The dog does not want to go on place. And so the owner got a phone call and she's like, oh, I'm sorry. I got to run inside and grab this. I had no problem. And so I'm like, for the life of me, I can't get this dog to go on place. And so I said, man, I remember that one time, that technique that didn't make any sense to me, but it made sense on the outcome. And so I basically it was an American Bulldog. I basically pick her up and put her on place. And I basically use the same technique. I'm like, pop, 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 pop. When you get back on place, tapping turns off. Pop, 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 pop. And then I'm basically walking around, like jumping around the place, and the dog's staying there. And the owner comes back and she's like, oh my God, for the life of us, we could not get the dog to go on place. That's crazy that you got her to stay there. Why did it make sense? Why did it work? How did like the advanced thinking of like I describe what I learned from Waleed is like opening up a third eye into what dogs are truly capable of and how we can truly communicate with dogs. It's like wizard shit. Right? It's so far beyond the basic understanding. But if we don't understand the basics, like, again, him just also teaching me the 4 quadrants. Again, I went to dog training school, and even though they taught me the 4 quadrants, but I still couldn't, I understood it, but I couldn't explain it. Right? Just like as much as the basics, as much as teaching me about animal husbandry, how we raise dogs, You know, he's my mentor. He was Uzi's breeder, and he's the one that taught me how to breed dogs. You know, when I created my breeding program, it was literally he had stopped breeding. I'm like, all right, well, if you're not going to breed, I love these lines, so I'm going to breed them. And I basically line bred on Rodan, which is Uzi's father, which was Waleed's dog that he imported. And like I found because Michael Ellis and Waleed are friends. And when Waleed first imported Rodan, he let Michael breed Rodan to Fatwa. And so there's a lot of Rodan Fatwa dogs that have come off of this L litter, H litter, and all those Loup de Soleil dogs that came off of that. Like I found dogs from those lineages to be able to breed back to, right? And I really was just trying to, you know, recreate what he created because I loved what he created, you know? I love that type of dog. I love that medium, twitchy, you know, a little bit edgy, predatory, aggressive kind of dog. And so because that's what he produced, if he was continued to breed, I probably would have never bred, or I would have bred very, very sparsely with how sparsely I did breed. I would have bred even more sparsely, but you know, how to raise puppies, how to expose puppies, you know, every new breeder that I speak to, they talk about, putting the dogs on the puppies on the biosensory program, right? EMF, is it? Whatever it's called.
I can't remember.
You know, the program that was created by Lachlan, right? Whatever it is. Where do these dogs come from? Belgium? Where were a lot of these dogs bred? Like in a shed in Belgium by like a farmer? You know? Why are we changing the way that we're raising these puppies? We might change the way that we expose them to things because we have different stimuli. I need the dog to be good with can curtains, so I'm going to show him can curtains when he's young. If the puppy's going to do schutzen, he never needs to see a can curtain, right? So other than like exposure, but why would we raise them differently than the breed originally created through? You know, was G. Bibber picked up as a puppy and put on a wet towel? And I'm very passionate about this. That's why I hit my mic. Like, was he put through all this stress to teach him how to deal with stress as a little baby puppy? No, he's supposed to fucking cuddle with his mother and mother keep him warm and mother nurse him. And then as he gets bigger, as he gets older, as he ventures out farther and farther, right? Again, dogs and puppies need to be exposed to things, but like I believe exposing them to dogs that, you know, dogs that young to things that stressful at such a young age. That's how he raised them. And he raised strong dogs. So, you know, I think genetics have a lot, you know, you have to know your genetics, right? Even though like I know the lines, but I'll always call Waleed, you know, what's the coefficient on these dogs? You know, and he'll sit there and go beep boop beep 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 beep. What's the movie That's My Boy with Adam Sandler?
Donnie Burger.
The kid Adam Sandberg, right? Adam Sandberg, he can do numbers in his head. They're like, oh, what's the square root of 84 times 58? And he's like, beep boop beep boop beep. So like to me, while that's what I picture Waleed when he's working coefficiencies and like looking at pedigrees, the man studied pedigrees. And you can literally like, you'll show him a dog and be like, oh, let me see the pedigree. Be like, oh, I knew that dog's, you know, great aunt. I watched that dog great aunt, you know, like get its rank 3 or whatever it was. Like I saw that dog in Belgium, you know, compete for Cat 1. Like, you know, it's really marvelous. It's amazing when you find people that are really talented, really good at what they do, and everyone has their own niche. You know, everyone has their own skill set. You know, and it's just it's marvelous to see what I wish I could do, what he can, like the math that he can do in his head. You know, today's episode is we have our first sponsorship to the episode.
Oh,
right?
Exciting.
We have, it's actually a sleeve, right? That from a company, ALM. Our friend Arnaud, which ironically, Arnaud and Waleed are friends. And when Arnaud first moved here from France, he stayed at Waleed's house before he got himself situated and moved to California. So, or Vegas, right? They are located in Vegas, Nevada. I have been to the factory, and that was really cool to see them like actually sewing bite suits. I'm a little bit of a bite suit junkie, and so, just like picking up equipment and seeing things, and especially I like sewing machines and stuff like that. So we have a review today, and I am going to pass it off to my man, Jay Money. Jay Money, you going to do this review for me? Okay. You take that, and we'll see you after the commercial. Thanks, Jay Kizzle. Appreciate you. This is the ALM bicep sleeve. So this is actually a design that Arnaud and I created, okay? We need sleeves purposely built, right? So back in the beginning of PSA, people used, leg sleeves on their arm. Well, the problem is our legs are larger than our arms, right? So it's baggy. I don't want something that's baggy. I wanted something that would cover the arm. I wanted something that would mimic as much as I can the suit arm, right? And so we would use leg sleeves. We would use Belgian sleeves, right? So when I say Belgian sleeve, I mean a soft linen forearm sleeve. But we would then flip them around and use them in the bicep. Well, if you go to your Belgian sleeve and you feel it, you'll feel that all the padding is here. And then when you get about the elbow, the padding starts getting less and less up at the top. It's because in Belgian ring, the dog targets from the elbow to the wrist. They're like, that's just there. God forbid the dog comes up high to give you a little bit of protection, but it's not made for targeting. And then we're just like, there you're getting beat up. Yes, you're protected by it as a sleeve, but also it doesn't come up that high, right? I had a closed back jute leg sleeve. This is a leg sleeve that slips onto your leg, but it's closed back, meaning there's no Velcro. We really don't see them in the States because we want to be able to rip the Velcro and slip, or you'll see the lattice, right? It was a closed back leg sleeve. Now, obviously, it's going to be straight because it needs to be able to fit on the leg, slide it on and slide it off. But Waleed gave me this sleeve, and I put it on my arm, and it just fit on my arm perfectly. I was able to pull it in. I was able to pull it into my bicep just a little bit. I personally don't teach bicep targeting. I teach armpit, right? So we're teaching the pocket. And if the sleeve only comes to here, I can only safely target the dog here. And I need to be able to target the dog here into that pressure point. So technically, I need sleeve to come just slightly onto my chest. So I had been talking to Arnaud in the past. He said, well, what can I make that PSA people will enjoy, right? He competed in French ring. He was a French ring decoy. What can I make that PSA people need? And I go, I need a purpose-built bicep sleeve. There's a few other companies that have made bicep sleeves. They're all very straight. I wanted something that was tapered. I wanted something that more mimicked the arm. My forearm and my bicep muscles are going to be different sizes, and I don't want a sleeve that fits on the arm straight. So what I did was I took this bicep sleeve. It wasn't a bicep sleeve. It was a closed back leg sleeve. And I use this thing. Again, it's jute, so jute's not going to last as long, but I took really good care of it, but I used it until it died. I cuffed it. I tried fixing it and anything I could to do to keep it living as long as it could. It was just one of those sweet spot sleeves. I could work, a younger dog on it, or I could work an adult dog that we're working on targeting. It wasn't too much padding for the young dog, but it was enough padding to be able to work the older dogs. And so I was very sad when it died, and I put it in a box and I shipped it to Arnaud. And so we then made adjustments. As you can see, it tapers, right? Now, if you look at the sleeve, there is more padding in the bicep than there is in the forearm, right? Obviously, the sleeve is made, its main purpose is for bicep targeting. However, I also give forearm with this. Now, the reason why I like it is pretty much I can use this as an all-in-one sleeve is if you look down here, the padding is not much. So for like a really young dog, that's not too much. Whereas this padding up here is nice and hard, right? Again, this is a brand new one. I have, I think, 7 of them in the training room. We use them, like this is my most used sleeve, and this is the design that Arnaud and I came up with, okay? There was a few things. I wanted it to taper. I wanted it to fit my arm. I needed to be able to put it on my arm, which I'm going to demonstrate, and I wanted to be able to fit my hand outside. I don't like sleeves that cover the hand because I'm not truly giving the picture to the dog, because in the bite suit, you would see the decoy's hands. So I want to be able to give that picture, right? Also, as you see, it comes up onto my chest. So my armpit is sitting about right here. So if the dog bites right here, which is where I want the dog to target, right here, I'll accept this. I'll accept this. This is no. This is okay a little bit. It's a little high, right? We want right here. That's that spot I'm looking for. Okay? Now, as part of it, this is going to protect my chest a little bit. I also asked Arnaud, I want a handle. I want it to be the size of 4 fingers, and I want it to be able to pull it in nice and tight. So if you look, my knuckles right now are actually protected. So on the off chance that I came in and I mistargeted, I can still have my hand protected, okay? We also have on the inside is a little tab, so I can attach it to a leash and I can make prey with it. As I said before, because the padding is thinner down here, I can give forearm bites to younger dogs. And so if you're like, oh, Jonathan, what would be a sleeve that I could buy that I could do like a bunch of stuff with? This is my go-to. This is my goat. Like, this is the sleeve that gets me through the hard times. This is my pillow. Mine are all, I have two that fit me because Arnaud also makes different sizes. So depending on the size of your arm, people that have bigger arms, people that have smaller arms, I have bigger arms than Isaiah. So I have 2, I have an orange. I think they're both level 4s. I have 2 level 4s, so like that's my sweet spot. They make up to a 5. I want to say this is a 5. I'm not exactly sure. I don't remember the tabs exactly. Isaiah knows what all the tabs are. And I had ordered a set that fit Isaiah, and those are a little bit smaller. It's like mine are XL and those are large or whatever it is. But we have everything from a little puppy up until you could work an adult dog on this sleeve and be safe. I can also flip it around and use it on my tricep, right? Usually the tricep's going to be a little bit softer, right? Because decoys are always doing this, right? The tricep is not as hard to bite. And because this is so large, right? The padding is big and the dogs really have to learn to open up their mouths. This is a huge component in my system. This is how I build the bicep. I don't put the dog on the suit until it's beautiful here. I don't see any purpose. The suit is like finished, right? I want all of my behavior to be finished when I put the dog in the suit because I don't want to teach anything on the suit. I'm going to teach on sleeves, right? Just because I'm teaching on sleeves doesn't mean that my dogs won't bite for real. It just means that I'm teaching the dog where they can target and they can win and be successful. Now, if I slip them the sleeve and then I agitate them off the sleeve, or the handler gives a sound, gives a command, and they go, spit this out and come back to me, and now going to bite with no equipment. Like that's what we're ultimately looking for, but I still have to give the dog bites. Mike Tyson punches someone with pads. He doesn't punch people in the face, right? You're not trying to kill people. I can't go to the hospital, right? So the idea of this sleeve is a little bit of a transformer, right? I can do multiple different things with it, and it really like it solves the purpose of, you know, basically like 3 sleeves to me, you know? I could work it on some young dogs. I can move it around and basically make it. I also don't use a lot of pillows in my training. I ultimately want to be able to put my arm in there, and I want the dog to feel me as quickly as I can possibly get them to feel me. And a pillow just doesn't allow me to put my hand in there, right? But I can hold it and I can use it as a pillow, right? As I said, I can attach it to a leash and I can move it around, right? I'll even do the foundation of like leg targeting. So the first part of teaching a dog to bite legs is teaching them to move their eyes out, right? To the left or to the right. And I can actually hold it down and teach them to open up their mouth and turn their head to the left or turn their head to the right. Once I've then got that concept, I need to use a leg sleeve because my leg won't fit in here, but I can still teach them that concept of like biting with your head tilted, which is slightly stressful, right? If you see some dogs that, you know, genetically would not be biting legs, like Schutzen dogs or whatever it is, you'll see them sometimes, they'll be stressed with their neck twisted, right? Those dogs, I make them bicep dogs because they rather have their neck be straight. Whereas you look at dogs that were genetically bred for French ring, those dogs are very comfortable going boom, boom, boom. You see Lion, like he can extend his neck like, what was the guy in the Fantastic Four? He could extend his neck out and twist it in all different, like poltergeist. It's crazy. It's genetics, right? It's wild. But this just kind of gives me 3 different sleeves in one. Right. And I really enjoy it. I also have leg sleeves from ALM. I enjoy those too. You know, he makes some phenomenal equipment. They really hold up a really long time. Again, if you take good care of your equipment, it'll last a long time. And this sleeve really, I mean, this is a new one, but if I showed you on the next episode and I pulled out, you know, one that I've been using for years, like they still are in phenomenal shape. They last forever. And even at the price point, like it's still a great price point because they're all different prices. You can also get a set where you can basically buy all 5 of them of all levels. It's a phenomenal piece of equipment. I appreciate Arnaud for making this specific piece of equipment for what we need as trainers to make our jobs easier. If you want an ALM bicep sleeve, I will put the website. Will come and I will put a link in the comments and you can go in and purchase one for yourself. And I really want to thank ALM for being our first sponsor on the podcast. Thank you so much, Arnaud. And I really value your equipment and I appreciate the years of protection that your equipment has offered. Thank you. Now we're going to cut back to Jonathan's going to finish the podcast and we'll catch you in a couple minutes. And thank you, Jay Money, for that awesome commercial. Yes, I do agree with you that ALM Bicep Sleeve is a phenomenal piece of equipment, and I appreciate the work that you did with Arnaud to build that. So, thank you. Again, ironic that we did the ALM commercial on the Waleed episode, but I think kind of everything works together, and I met Arnaud through Waleed. Right. My first Demon that I ever bought, Arnaud was still a Demon dealer at the time, and he physically measured me for my suit. We're talking 2010. Kids, what grade were you in 2010? Every time I say that, people are like, I was not born. I was in kindergarten. So I think mentorship in dog training is very important, and it's something I talk about a lot. And the main purpose of this video series and this episode specifically is to basically thank my mentors for all of the knowledge that they instilled in me. And so this episode is a thank you to Waleed Maalouf for everything that he instilled in me, all of the knowledge that he gave me, all of the stress that he saved me by teaching me how to solve the problem, right? I was struggling to get Uzi through. I told this story on one of the episodes. I left you guys on a cliffhanger. Waleed was the one that helped me problem solve being able to heal Uzi in the threes, right? He was my patrol dog and my bomb dog when I worked for the Israeli government. That if he took people screaming at us as he'd take it very offensive. Right? Like Uzi did not like that 4 people, like the twos, we kind of breezed through the twos. We got our first leg, our first time showing, our second leg, our second time showing. Our third leg was regionals, and we took East Coast regional champion. And then at nationals, I took vice champion. My buddy Aaron pulled his dog off the couch, retired, and did like 2 weeks of training with Jeff and took national champion. I was happy for him that he won, but it was my first year on the podium. Like, we kind of breezed through the twos. We struggled in the threes. Once we figured out how to get through obedience, then getting through protection would only be a coin toss of whether he's going to call off or not. And that was another problem. Like once I unlock okay, you can't get through obedience. Okay, you finally got through obedience. Now, damn it, the dog doesn't want to call off, right? And I had to figure out how to solve that problem. Waleed taught me how my correlation between, the 5 primary resources of a dog and giving them what they need when they need it. The way, like if we go back to the primal nature of what is prey, I had never heard anyone describe prey as chase, catch, kill, consume. Like he's the first person that explained this to me. My foundation puppy work. He taught me how to raise puppies, how to do puppy bite work, how to build young dogs, even though he competed in French ring, but from his time that he'd spent in Belgium, he still raised his dogs like Belgian ring dogs. And Belgian ring dogs have to bite full, and they have to push through scary things. They have to go through water. They have to go through bottles. It's the gigantic can curtains. It's not a guy holding a can curtain. It's gigantic can curtains they have to run through. And he would still lay a Belgian foundation on his French ring dogs, but all his dogs gripped so well. Like they were all, French ring dogs aren't necessarily known for being full biting dogs because French ring does not judge that. So genetically, you're not selecting dogs with the fullest grips, right? The average, serious Belgian ring competitor is like, if this dog's not going to have a 25-point grip, I don't want it. We'll sell it. It'll go to a police department somewhere in America. And these fucking canine handlers are like, they're sending us their monsters, but because they can't get them that championship, they don't want it, right? Like different types of dogs, different dogs for different jobs, but that foundation of teaching dogs how to grip, how to bite, how to win, how to push through pressure, right? This was invaluable experience, just sitting there for hours and just watching him work dogs. Once you have the understanding of how dogs learn, and then you sit there and you watch a trainer do it, you can watch it on the internet. There's a lot of people that you'll meet and they go, I'm self-taught. If they've watched trainers on the internet teach dogs, there's a trainer who's to follow me around. He just tell people he's self-taught. I'm like, dude, I taught you how to use a clicker. You didn't use a clicker before me. You would click once. One cookie. Click, treat, click, treat. Like, dude, I taught you. You can't tell people you're self-taught if someone taught you, even if you learned on the internet. So the hard part about being self-taught, you'd have to literally put yourself in a bubble where you didn't train with other people, because anytime you train with someone, they're going to rub off on you, especially their good habits, right? If we want to pick up the good habits, why do we train with people that are better than us? Because they're going to make us better, right? Like I loved when I didn't have a club and I would just drive, 2.5 hours, 3 hours, 4. I'd drive to Jeff's house and, it'd be like a bunch of guys, a bunch of people. We would train really quickly. Everyone's very efficient. Everything get done really quickly and all phenomenal sets. Those are all really experienced people. Bim, bam, boom, back on a ferry heading home. Those are great sessions. I also truly value my club that we're growing together. Like those dogs, my dogs previously are titled. They're retired. Uzi's passed away. Cougar and Puma are living the retirement and doing whatever they want. I'm now going through with a young dog. And, Hood Rat Heather's the most experienced person in the club at this point. She's in the 3s. I'm still putzing around in the 2s.
I still think that's crazy.
Right? I think it's cool. It's the evolution of, like Bandit coming from the, like having started originally in a different club and then coming to Strong Island, and then from Strong Island, then coming and then now being the most experienced person in the Dogma Demons, right?
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's cool, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's I love it. It's always the next generation. The next puppy is the next journey. Like I have Bob, my puppy Bobcat, like this is a whole different journey. This is if you tape the Malinois and a pit bull together, like literally, and he fucking acts like a Malinois and a pit bull, and he's got the drive of Malinois, but he's stubborn like a pit bull, and he's got the personality of a pit bull. I love him. He's phenomenal, but he's gonna give me a run for my money.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch you raise this one.
It's and I personally love the journey. I love, I love starting over again, because every dog is going to be a different journey, and it's the unknown and the like just going through the process and having to figure out what this dog needs at this moment. I left a bunch of stuff. Bob's 8 months, and I didn't start any e-collar work with him, until last week was our e-collar course, right? And I started it again, just very light. He's working on like 4, and I'm combining it with my food, and we're teaching him how to turn off negative reinforcement and achieve positive reinforcement. And I basically left this for me to show the students, because they're learning how to incorporate e-collars into their training. And so here, I'm going to show you my puppy that's never felt an e-collar before, and I'm going to show you how I incorporate it, right? Part of my confidence in like taking out my dog, I don't have to like be at home and like prep him. And no, I'm going to do it right in front of you. It's the restaurant where you're literally watching the kitchen. The kitchen, it's an open concept. You can see the kitchen. Everyone's cooking. It can't be like a kitchen where, they're playing heavy metal and like people are cursing at each other and, the chef's throwing knives at you. Like it's a different vibe, right? You're trying. Sorry, I worked in the food industry for too long. But, this is a lot calmer of a vibe. I enjoy this vibe way more than working in the kitchen. I love food, obviously. But I love, part of my love language is gift giving, and cooking food for people to me is a gift. Like if I didn't have people to cook for, I really wouldn't cook. I'd make very basic, like just enough to be able to feed myself. You'll see these chefs that will sit down and they'll build themselves like all these amazing, elaborate meals just for themselves. Like take an hour to make a sandwich, and I'm like, put 2 pieces of meat on a piece of bread and put some mustard on it, and I'm fine, right? So this is my ode to Waleed. This is my thank you to the man that spent the most amount of time making me the trainer that I am today. There are multiple people that make up who I am today. Again, I figured out a lot of things on my own, but he's the one that opened up my eyes, I feel, to be able to figure these things out. to be able to, again, opening up my eyes as to what communication can be and how much stronger, how much more efficient, how much more, understanding that we can give to that dog, and how quickly we can teach things with no stress. Like, you think from what I'm describing that these are like high stress, like, no, like the dog gets it. The dog gets it. It's all about finesse. It's all about finesse. I can say the same words sentence to you in 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 different ways, and you will perceive me saying what I'm saying in 10 different ways, right? It's all in how we convey to the dog what is expected of them and how to perform their job. They're like monkeys, like monkey see, monkey do, monkey see, monkey do, monkey see, monkey do. Do that 150 times and they'll start to understand it. That's all it is. Timing, consistency, and repetition. The timing, right? How long does a dog have between cause and effects? 1.3 seconds. It took me longer to say 1.3 seconds than is 1.3 seconds. That's how quickly dogs understand. I'm forever indebted to this man for what he taught me, because he helped make the trainer I am today. And I thank you. And I appreciate you for, as I said before, like seeing the skill and the talent in me to be able to want to put more time into me, because I had seen him try to help people that really are not that helpable, and him be like, I can only help you so much. But every time he'd give me homework, I'd work on it. Every time Uzi would achieve a new title, I would do something else with him. I'd always send him a text message like, dude, thank you so much for what you taught me and for the dog. And his response always would be like, nah, man, you did that. You trained that dog. And I'm like, I get it. I physically trained him, but I would not have known how to train him without you. Again, like puppy teeth, knives, razor blades, like just, there's a lot of dog for a young baby handler, and I've been training dogs for a decent amount of time. I started in rescue. I started with like behavioral issues. I started with dogs that, like had more classical aggression, dogs that had like fear aggression. And, like this was just like a puppy, and there was just like all these teeth, and I had to learn, and I had to rise to the occasion. And without that dog, I wouldn't be the trainer I am today. So from the bottom of my heart, Waleed, I know this is, and I want everyone to understand, like, this is not, the man does not like being gushed over. He's not the best at taking praise, and I can understand that. I struggle with that sometimes. I'm getting better at it, and I'm fighting through it, and I'm learning to accept the praise. But, this is our relationship. We haven't always necessarily seen eye to eye on everything, which I think is totally fine. Right? When two adults, that, it's was mentor mentee, and then he taught me and I got the experience where now we got to the point where, to an extent, mutuals, right? But I will still always look up to him as dad. Like, I'll always look up to him as the man that taught me all this cool shit that I wouldn't be as good at if he didn't teach it for me. So to you, I appreciate you, and I want everyone to tune in for our next episode. If you enjoy the podcast, I would really appreciate, it would really mean a lot to me if you took a couple of seconds and went over and gave us a like, give us a share, let us know what your favorite episode is, and let us know what you'd like to see on other episodes. I'm always up to suggestions. Anytime I can get someone in the studio, I just don't want to do, like we have a new board, we upgraded to a better board. And you can do, interviews from people that are not in the room, but it's just not the vibe that I wanted. right? I want to have people. There's something about being face to face with someone that I think is really important, as opposed to being in a totally different room. I've done so many interviews and podcasts from a distance, and it just seems to an extent very impersonal because you're not actually making eye contact with the person, right? So, if you have people that you think I should interview, if you have topics, I'm always open to suggestions, and we really appreciate that. Tune in to our next episode. See you then.